Hey, RedEye fans, this is Matt Walsh. I'm in a movie called Into the Storm. It's awesome, intense, great popcorn summer movie. Check it out. It opens Friday, August 8th.
How much did you complain about the weather when you were growing up in Chicago?
Just the cold. Like, I remember I went to Northern Illinois, and I remember a couple winters, like January when you come back right after Christmas, and like it's like 30 below, and then the power goes out or something, and you're just stuck in the house for like 2 or 3 days. Crazy. The cold is just bananas, especially in January.
But are you someone that is like a good sport about that? I admit I complain about the weather all the
No,
time.
when I lived here, I wasn't like a wimp about it. No, because I used to walk to school through snow and everything, so it was like I was totally used to it. And it's all about layers, guys. Layers, layers. Layers. I used to put like plastic bags on my feet and then put my boots over them, and just lots of like thermal wear that underneath, and then cover the head and hands, and you're fine.
Was there anyone on set during Into the Storm that maybe didn't have a similar upbringing as
Was a
you,
wimp?
so wasn't as prepared for kind of intense
No,
weather?
I think fortunately it was like we probably would have beat them up if they would have complained. 'Cause everybody was in the sewer. Like, we had this scene in the sewer at the end of the shoot for like 2 weeks, and we were all soaking wet and cold. And the crew works harder than you, and they're cold because if you're talent, they put a robe on you between takes, and they take care.
A robe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it have your name on it?
No, it doesn't have your name on it, but they try to keep you as comfortable as possible. So we had it the best of anybody on the shoot.
I feel like if you would have like thrown a fit and said, "I demand my name on this robe," they would have given it to you.
I don't know. They might have, yeah. I guess you could have pulled rank, and there's better things to fight for. That's not one of them.
Good point. What do you feel like was the biggest challenge for you in dealing with the setting of this film, all the weather that was created on set? Was there anything that was actually scary for you?
There was never any danger. I got to drive this wicked vehicle called the Titus, which is like a 10-ton pickup that's converted into a tornado chasing vehicle, basically a tank. So that was awesome. I got to drive that and beat the heck out of it. The challenge, I think, was because the tornadoes are going to be created in post, you're interacting with something that's not there. So it's trying to understand where it is. Like, in the beginning of the filming, like the first couple days, I always wanted to point so the other actors knew what we were looking at. The director's like, "Don't point, don't point. You don't need to point."
The tornado is right there. It's
yeah.
like, we know.
So that was my first instinct. And then I think trying not to laugh at times because it's so absurd. You're surrounded by green screen walls, and the tornadoes are represented by, and there's always wind and rain, like 100-mile-an-hour fans and constant rain. This tornado was represented by crew members in like raincoats because they're trying to stay dry, and then they have a broomstick with a tennis ball, and the tennis ball is the tornado, and they're running around like a merry-go-round pony. They're going like this, and you're in the vehicle, and you're trying not to laugh, and you're trying to be scared. So that was kind of a challenge. But
it does seem hard
you
to
learn
take
as the movie went on. You kind of learned how to interact with the things that aren't there, and I did a little bit of that on Ted, which was a movie I was in. So I had some experience.
Was there ever a moment that because of those challenges, like, people just missed it because you weren't pointing? People were being like, "Oh no," and it's like, actually it's over there.
It was like, there's several scenes in the movie where there's multiple, like there's one scene where I think there's like 6 tornadoes, and that was bananas because like you have to look at 6 different locations at the same time, and there's a little walkie-talkie because the director couldn't be right next to you because you're driving. So that was like, "Look right, no, keep driving, no, look left." That was a little crazy, but I think it all worked out, obviously.
I know that, for an actor, whether it's comedy, drama, action, you can transition smoothly if you have those abilities and everything like that, but this is something that's a little bit different from what you've done before. To what extent do you feel like you had to persuade the people involved in the project that this was something you could do, and like, why you wouldn't necessarily think Matt Walsh for this role?
I don't know. I mean, I was fortunate enough to get the script, and obviously I know about tornadoes growing up in Chicago, and I always wanted to do an action movie. So my first audition was just on tape. So it was like my wife filming me underneath the dining room table because there's a scene where like a roof falls in. So we shot that. So I guess that proved I could be serious. And then the second audition was just a Skype session / interview with Steve Quayle, the director, because he was already starting to travel and look at sites. And I did a little bit of acting on that for him, just to set a few lines, and he just wanted to, probably had the same concern about casting a traditionally funny person in a serious role. But I think it's an easier transition perhaps for a comedian to go into drama than a actor who's mostly dramatic to go into comedy. Generally, I think that's true.
Can you give me a sense of what that audition was like? You under the dining room table?
It's like it was a scene in the movie, which I don't know if it's still in there, but they get trapped because I think it's a church ceiling falls down on them, so they're underneath like debris, and he's like trying to take count of his crew and trying to make sure the footage is salvageable. So he's sort of taking charge, like he's the leader of the tornado group, so he's a bit of a sergeant. So it was basically focused on this guy taking command and making sure everything's still working and etc. So that was basically the scene. So I just kind of hid under my table, and my wife filmed me, and thank you, honey, for helping me get the job.
Was she happy with your performance in that audition?
She's a good director. Yeah, she was. She was a good director. We did multiple takes.
Say something now that shows how much you know about weather.
Oh, you son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. You're going to pimp me. Prove that I know about weather. Well, you need an updraft of about 70 miles an hour. 70 miles an hour to create hail situations. In other words, if you have a 50-mile-an-hour wind updraft, you will not get hail. You need about 70 miles an hour to carry hail up into the sky and then have it drop. And tornadoes can converge. Vortices of tornadoes can converge into one vortex. And that's never happened before, but it happened in the movie, and then it happened in real life. And also fire tornadoes are real. They're just basically a tornado will carry anything in its path, and there have been instances where something caught on fire and it turned into a complete funnel of fire.
Oh, wow. See, that was actually an easy question because I don't know anything about weather. You could have said anything and I would have believed you.
And I believe high-pressure systems create tornadoes.
What do you think?
I don't know about that one. I take that one back.
What is the impact of movies like Sharknado on both disaster movies and comedy?
Probably more on comedy than anything. I think Sharknado is one of those fun things to talk about because it's so intentionally cheesy. It's just like, it's like a water cooler type event, or it's in the zeitgeist that the joke's in the title. So Sharknado. So I think it has more impact on comedy. I think people enjoyed the ridiculousness of it as opposed to the science.
Do you like that sort? I guess I'm curious what you think as a comedian. To me, I don't prefer things that are trying to be bad on purpose.
I'm in the same boat. I don't begrudge anyone for liking Sharknado. It's a diversion, and I'm sure it is ridiculous. But I agree, if something's trying too hard to be bad, it's not my sensibility. It's not. I guess I don't like kitsch or camp as much as I like sort of subtler comedy. I like broad comedy, but broad comedy doesn't fall into the genre of Sharknado.
Well, sort of on a similar note, in the film you have these two amateurs who are trying to become YouTube stars and film footage of the tornado. Certainly YouTube is filled with people trying to be both storm chasers and comedians. What do you think about that outlet for kind of rising in either, I guess, the world of tornado chasing too, but also comedy in particular?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of amateur storm chasers out there, especially in states like Oklahoma and Arkansas. People want to get near a tornado because they do get a little money for their footage. But I don't recommend it. Like, you really need to be smart around a tornado because they're very unpredictable and extremely powerful. So I don't advise anyone get near a tornado ever. And as far as comedy goes, I think the paradigm has shifted. I do, like, when I came through comedy, it was all about stage time, hitting the boards, doing the work, getting up in front of an audience. And you get seasoned that way. And now people who are a hit on YouTube, if it's just in their bedroom and it's a 2-camera sort of diary every day, they can catch on and get a million
all it takes
followers.
Is one thing.
And they can sort of leapfrog that process. The challenge, though, is they might get into a situation where they weren't ready. Like, I feel like you can't replace human interaction, especially in comedy, because you need to hear where the laughs are, and you need that experience to, like I went through Second City and Improv Olympic and the annoyance, and I had a ton of it, and real theater, I had a ton of seasoning before I was fortunate enough to get on TV. And I think sometimes people jump the line, which is good because you get to a place where you can earn a living, but you don't have the skills. And I think you can't supplant experience in front of an audience. I think you really need to do both. But that said, if I was like an aspiring comedian, I said, yeah, get on YouTube, get on Twitter, learn how to write and learn how to edit, because those skills, making your own things, is so much easier. You don't need someone to like rent the camera for you anymore. You don't need someone to give you, $1,000 to make a movie or whatever it costs. You can do it on your own. So yes, learn editing, learn computer software, learn animation. You can animate things in your computer because that allows you to do things yourself.
But you're right. If you're kind of a one-hit wonder that does like one of those ridiculous songs, then people aren't going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
Who's more likely to make a reckless decision, politicians or storm chasers?
I think storm chasers, because I think politicians make very thoughtful decisions, even though they compromise. It's all about compromise and selling. Oftentimes they sell out their core principles to get reelected or to get a little bit of legislation that they like. It's still in compromise is discussion and thought, and they play out. They're forward thinking. They say, like, if I make this decision, what will happen? In storms and tornadoes, the recklessness is just like adrenaline and impulse and hunch, and that's why they're more likely to make a bad decision.
Into the Storm sort of replaces, in some ways, it's like a monster movie with a tornado as the monster. What are some other monster movies you'd like to see with weather replacing the monster?
Godzilla. I think tornado could do well. Jaws could be a tornado in the water, or a whirlpool. What else? Maybe a monster. Maybe Frankenstein could be like a doctor creates a human-sized tornado from a smorgasbord of human parts. Frankenstein could work. I don't think Dracula could work because it's too subtle.
Can you look into the camera and think about what your time capsule video would have been like in high school? Speak to your future self.
Speak to my future self. Matt, don't do Into the Storm 5. 1, 2, and 3 will be good. 4, you'll make your paycheck. You'll finally make the money you deserve. And 5, is going to suck. So just do 1, 2, 3, and 4 Into the Storm.